I get a lot of questions about being a futurist. Today, I am going to answer some of those. Let's begin. Number one, where do futurists work? Excellent question. I might say everywhere, but let's be a little more helpful. We usually think of three different areas. One is certainly as consulting futurists. Do we help organizations from the outside, giving advice about the future for them? Sometimes we work inside organizations, and I think this has probably been the area that's been growing the fastest over the last maybe 10 years, where somebody has an organizational futurist. So this has been really exciting to see that development. If I had to forecast the next 10 years, I think we're going to see a lot more organizational futurists. And then probably the third major area where people work is as what we might call the keynoters or the thought leaders, where somebody builds up an expertise in a particular aspect of the future. You might be the library futurist or the medical futurist or so on. And you parlay that into a speaking and consulting business. So those are probably the three main areas: consultings, insiders, and keynoters. All right, next question. What is the day in the life of a futurist like? That's kind of a funny story. I once had a reporter from the Financial Times come visit me and spend a day, or actually 2 days, trailing me to see basically that very question. And what was, I think, very exasperating for him was that we were kind of boring, right? We're researchers. We spend a lot of time, behind the screen, digging for information, might do an interview now and then. And I can remember him being like, well, looking for something special that nobody else does. And so I would say one of the things that trying to be, as I think about my day today, I mean, there's a lot of time, scanning. There's a period of time just looking for new information. There's a lot of, basic administrative stuff, but we all do that. Project work, always spend a good chunk of time on project work. And I think, now that I'm in academia, obviously a lot of time preparing the classroom. And maybe another bucket of activity is around preparing talks, speeches, workshops. Oh, finally, there is one thing that I want to make sure I tell you about. I try to reserve one little piece of time for a project that's just for me, that's fun. So, as you guys probably know, after capitalism has been that topic for the last decade or so. Before that, it was the future of values. So always have one project that when you have that little bit of time and you really want to just enjoy what you're doing completely, that's great to have one of those in reserve. All right, let's move on. Number 3, can you tell me more about the University of Houston Foresight program? Well, I sure can. I'm not only a professor and now the program coordinator at the University of Houston, but I was also a student way back in the late 1980s. So I've been hanging around the program for a while. I think it's more important to talk about what is it like today. Well, number one, it's all virtual. And that's been a pretty major shift that's been happening over a long period of time. My predecessor, Peter Bishop, started out bringing courses slowly online. We did hybrid for many years. And a couple of years before the pandemic, we went fully virtual. So that's certainly one thing that's unique. But I think in terms of how we fit into the landscape of the Foresight landscape, well, we're pretty well known for our rigor in terms of project work. I think we do a lot of projects actually at the university where students work on projects with clients, real paid projects. And I think we've emphasized that aspect of Foresight, that we really believe project work is a central thing. And we're not saying there aren't other things to do, but that's kind of our specialty. Of course, we do have theory as well. We teach social change course, a systems thinking course. We have a course on alternative perspectives. We talk a lot about the psychology of the future. But I would say, the core of what we do is teaching people to go out and do project work. Like I said earlier, whether it's as consultants, insiders, or kind of thought leaders. So I think that's also an interesting feature of the Houston Foresight program. We do, I would say, put a lot of emphasis on research rigor so that our project work, if it is going to draw provocative conclusions, which it often does, that we feel confident that we can support a provocative assertion and know that we've done our homework, and that if we are challenged on such a thing, that we feel like we can stand by it because we've done good, solid research. So I think those are some of the aspects of the Houston Foresight program. But let's see what else we've got here. Can I do it online, and do I have to be a full-time student? Well, of course, we are virtual, and it's really interesting how we've learned to do that. Now, I think a lot of us, if we had the perfect world, we would probably love to have a face-to-face experience, but it's just, in today's world, it's really difficult to do. The beauty of the virtual program is that we've been able to, we are able to bring in students from all over the world. 20 to 25% of our students are international, another 20% to 25% are Houston, and that means about 50% are from various parts around the United States. And we constantly hear feedback that people love the, if you will, the diversity of people that we have in the program. So that's kind of a cool feature. And you do not have to be full-time. As a matter of fact, I would say probably 75, 80% of our students are part-time, mostly working professionals. And those working professionals may be doing some foresight work already and are coming to us to kind of beef it up, or they may not be doing it yet, but see that opportunity and want to bring it to the organizations that they're currently with. Other folks are saying, I want to use foresight to get out of what I'm doing. I want to move into something new. So in that kind of a situation, of course, you need to be flexible. And so we are very accommodating and recognize that since we have mostly working professionals, that we have to design a curriculum that allows flexibility. But we do have the occasional maniac who wants to go through full time and do it fast. And we applaud that. Well, I would say we find, or the feedback we hear is not that the program is hard to do, but there's a lot to do. There's a lot of thinking. Right? There's a lot to organize, and there's a lot of work that takes place. So it takes time, right? Time takes time. And so I would say that one of the challenges of trying to go full time is just finding the time to do it. So mostly people choose to do it at their own pace. All right, next question. If I don't want to go back to school, can I still learn about foresight? Absolutely, no doubt. So I, of course, as I mentioned earlier, I did go through the program, but that was 30 years ago. And over the years in various consulting companies that I've worked with, also as an internal futurist, I have helped train many people kind of in an apprentice role, where I was the practitioner and we hired someone without a foresight background. Sometimes we did, but sometimes we didn't. And the apprentice role is absolutely legit. The challenge with the apprentice role is you got to find it, right? I mean, that's a hard thing to do. And so I think a lot of our students come to us because they're looking for that entry into the field. It's hard to find. For me, at least, the academic route is if you can't, if you don't have that connection, if you don't have that pathway in front of you, and you really want to do it, come to us, and we will certainly provide the background, the portfolio of work, and obviously we're pretty well connected in the space. So no, you don't have to get an academic degree and have an academic background, but it certainly is a useful pathway. The website mentions a spring gathering. What is that? Oh, now you got to have fun. And I've often said, while we can make a comfortable living as a futurist, there are easier ways to make money. It is a challenging field. Not nobody, but very few people know who we are and so on. So a lot of times we have to explain what we do. I don't think my mom ever figured that out after 30 years of working in the field. Anyway, it's hard work. It's rewarding work. But it's also fun. And I can't tell you how many times students, professionals, clients have said, working on foresight projects is so much better than my real work. And I've often said this, I joke around, like someday I'm going to have to get a job, right? Because I love doing this work. It's, again, hard work, not easy work, hard work, but it's fun. And people, we're so caught up in the day-to-day, right? That the gift of being able to kind of step back and say, what are we doing? Where are we going? What should we? People love it. right? They just don't have time to do it. So one of the beauties of this work is that people enjoy it. And, one might argue that is, in terms of a career, right? We do want to find a career that's fun. Not only is it fun, but it's also rewarding and, beneficial, helpful work. So I think that's a really good question to come up with and say, well, how does that fit to the spring gathering? Well, we want to make time to recognize, as a virtual program, we know people love to have that sense of community. We know people love to work together, even virtually. So once a year we come together every spring. We've been doing it in mid-April for many years now. And we have a different topic every year. Now, last year, we celebrated our 50th anniversary as a program. So we're the first program in the world to make it to 50 years. So good on us, I suppose, right? Hopefully we'll make the next 50 years. But we come together, the alums, the current students, prospective students, all come together, faculty, of course, and we spend a couple of days on a different kind of topic. It's light, but also interesting. This year we're going to do transformation. It's all about what do we know about transformation, the process, what does transformative futures look like, and so on. So we'll look at different aspects of a topic, and then we've liberally salted in some fun, right? So go out and have a little party afterwards, sometimes in the backyard, sometimes in a restaurant, but whatever it might be. So the spring gathering is a time for us to come together, meet in person, have some fun, and really dig in and into some futures ideas in some depth. Hope we'll see you at one someday. How long does it take us to become a futurist? Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm not sure I have a easy answer for that one. I think there is a little bit, maybe compared to some other fields, where the career pathway is a little more certain, right? You do this, right? You march along, and the futurist pathway is a little less defined. And sometimes it's an opportunistic thing. And part of it depends on us and how willing or how flexible can we be. So, for example, my own experience. After graduating from the program, I did an internship and hooked on with an organization and stayed there for many years. So that internship leading to a position, that's one pathway. But after I left, there was a lull in there, and it was a case of trying to find, what we'd say is there's not a lot of futurist jobs, right? It's still a relatively niche field. And a lot of times it's like, are you available when the jobs are available, right? So in a sort of tight supply there, sometimes it's just circumstances, right? So I, as somebody who recommends people a lot of times it's like, oh no, that person just took a job or this one just opened. So we got to be patient. Sometimes you get lucky and the timing works out. The second you're available, there's something there. And I would say this, one of the things that we've been doing the last few years, off and on, more on now than off, is tracking job postings. And one of our former students, Lasha, did an amazing job in tracking down job positions within the Fortune 500, found that about 25% of the US Fortune 500 had some kind of a foresight position. Now, most people are like, really? And if you had looked on the website, you'd never been able to find it. So a lot of times it's not even mentioned publicly. And again, that's one of the benefits of, I guess, being here is like we kind of know where those positions are, so to speak, but they're not so publicly available. So I guess the wind up of all that is it might take a little longer, or you might have to do a little more kind of forensic work to find them. But in my experience, if you go through the program or you develop the skills in an apprenticeship role and you're good at this work, you will absolutely find a place to work. There is the supply of futurists is still actually lagging behind the demand. It's just a matter of finding and making those two pathways meet. Oh my goodness, it looks like I'm up to my last question here. Any books about foresight you recommend that I read? Well, you can imagine this is another question that has come up a lot. And to help answer that, I did a blog post. I think the first one was maybe 10 or 12 years ago about 10 books for prospective futurists. And I updated it a couple of times. I think the last one was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Anyway, probably time to do it again, right? But 10 books that, if you were coming in fresh, that I would say would get you off and running, and kind of looking across kind of the ecosystem, different aspects of the future. And, part of my thought process there would be to pick books that are, maybe someone's a methodology person or a data person or a, save the world person, whatever it might be, and tried to pick some books across that range, right? So, of course, we use thinking about the future as our core methodology, and that would certainly be one place to start. And when we're very clear when people come to us that we have a way of doing the future that we've developed over time, and we're happy with it, but it's not the only way. It's not the best way. It's not the right way. There are lots and lots of different ways and different thinkers, and we think of it as there is a foresight ecosystem with different approaches. What we try to do is we teach our approach, and then once you understand the basics of how we work, then you go out and investigate some of those other approaches and see how they might integrate with what we do. So there's just an amazing array of possibilities out there. So if you search 10 books for prospective futurist, you will likely find that list, and that can get you on the road to becoming a futurist. So those are some of the questions that I get as a program coordinator at the University of Houston Academic Foresight Program. I hope that someday we might sit down and talk about them face to face.